Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Joe Candido, sales expert, consultant, author, and we'll learn from him how to move beyond product pitching and become a trusted advisor to business leaders. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thanks, KJ. It's great to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Joe. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to learn about. We'll learn from you how one can transform sales with business outcome selling. We'll learn all of this. But before that, let's learn a bit about your background, about your journey, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Sure, perfect. So, I started my career in the tech sector, and quite honestly, it was a very technical role, and people didn't even understand how to use technology. And so I stumbled into business outcome approach because it was necessary. I had to understand their business in order to show them the value of technology, because they would say to me, well, what can this technology do for me? How will it help my business? Why should I spend money on it? And I didn't have a good answer. So I started changing my conversation to understanding their business. Well, what do you do? What are your challenges? And so on. And this was over 35 years ago. And so over time, I really developed a very powerful approach of being business outcome or customer centric. And I evolved that, and then I became a consultant, and I started providing training and coaching and consulting to companies, Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 500, and mid-market companies. And over time, really perfected, my approach, which I call leadership selling. So I've been doing it for a long time for thousands of salespeople in hundreds of companies, and the results are really consistent. This works. And I'm not saying it because it's my idea. I think other people are also doing a similar thing, but I want to share that it is not traditional selling. There are some significant differences, and it really works.
Absolutely. It really works. So we'll understand how to get, this working for other people who might listen to your episode, this particular episode, and other places that you talk about. So firstly, you talk about, that traditional selling no longer works. That you call it traditional selling is dead. Why do you think so? People are traditionally still selling, except that they have inducted bots into their systems.
Yeah, they're still doing it. I mean, I get calls every single day with people, and they say, I want to speak to the president. I want to speak to the business owner. They don't have any idea who my company is. They don't know what I do, yet they're calling me. They're not prepared for the call. And the customers know this. The prospects know this. And this is why I say traditional selling is dead, is because prospects don't appreciate it. If you want to get time with me, you have to prove to me that you can help me, that you know something about my business, about my competitors, about my customers that would be helpful to me. And this is what I call the give to get approach. When I call a customer or a prospect, I don't ask them for anything. I offer something. I offer trends. I offer insights. I offer knowledge, information that's valuable to them. Okay. And this is a game changer, because now they're interested in hearing what I have to say, because I'm actually talking about their business, their competitors, their industry, and maybe a challenge or an opportunity, right? And so that's why I say traditional selling is dead, is because if you're a salesperson and it's your agenda and you're simply trying to jam your product down the throat of the customer, it doesn't work. Yeah, every once in a while you're going to get lucky. And, I always say even a blind squirrel can find an acorn once in a while, but blind squirrels die of starvation. And salespeople that are product pushers die of low success and low financial reward, because customers don't want that. And so this is why I say the approach no longer works. I'm not sure it was ever very effective, but today it's not at all effective. Customers have too many choices. They've got too much information at their fingertips with the internet. And, they're looking for an advisor. They're looking for someone that can actually help them. And if not, they'll just go buy the product on their own, and they'll buy it at the lowest price possible. That's it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when you say be a leader, sell to leaders, what does it mean? Means say, if a salesperson start thinking themselves as a leader, will they be able to make a sale?
Sure. So this is a very key concept. When I say be a leader, I don't want people to fake it. I don't want them to lie about what they do. That's not my point. But I want them to think like a leader and be able to have a leader to leader conversation. Right? This is a business conversation. It's not pushing product. It's not asking probing questions. It's not qualifying the customer. It's having a business conversation. Be a leader, sell to leaders means I call on the C-suite. If I'm selling, let's say I'm selling an IT product, I'm not going to call on the IT department. I might call on the CIO or I might call on the CEO, but I'm not going to call to the manager of security or the manager of IT. I want to have a business conversation with a leader. And in order to do that, I have to act like a leader myself and not be selfish and jamming my product down their throat, but rather understanding their business, sharing insights. Like I might say, oh, the reason why I'm calling you is because I recently read a report from Deloitte, and I've shared this report with other executives just like you in your industry, and they all found it very valuable. I'd like to share it with you because I understand that right now, one of your key initiatives is to expand your outreach, and so now we can have a business conversation about what are others doing, what are some of the changes in the marketplace, and how might this benefit the person I'm speaking with. Be a leader, sell to leaders. It's a different approach.
So how do I become that leader who can sell to leaders? Because there are many gatekeepers in between, and I need to then build that relationship first. Then I will be. Can I just pick up the phone, call on someone's mobile phone, or even on landline phone, and get across to those leaders and start talking like a leader? So that there has to be some gatekeeper somewhere. It
Sure.
sounds the right way to do it, but actually, how do you do it? Is there a way one can get efficient, proficient into
Yes.
this particular thing?
KJ, you're very insightful that, you are correct. Like the concept makes sense, but how do I do it? And I think the first thing I would say is a lot of how you do it is in my book called Leadership Selling. I can't cover all the details in this podcast, but certainly the book provides a lot more detail and people are always welcome to contact me. But let me give you an overview right now. The first thing that I'll say is that, sales is hard, right? And it also pays very well. And it's okay that it's hard, So part of the work that salespeople need to do is actually learn about an industry that they're selling into. So let's say that you're in the construction industry and I'm selling to you. Well, I have to educate myself on construction industry, right? I can't just call on you cold. I have to know about your industry. And so that means I've got to read trade journals, maybe attend some trade shows, talk to customers that are friendly with me so that they can educate me more about, their industry. But I have to ramp up and understand what's going on in this business. Talk to other vendors that are servicing the construction industry or whichever industry it is, healthcare, technology, whatever, right? So first job is I have to know something about their industry. That's very important. And that takes some time and that's an investment. But once you have that knowledge, you can use it again and again and again. So, there is reuse of the knowledge that you gain. In larger companies, the marketing team will help you. They'll provide a lot of that research. They'll create information, and they can do training, to help ramp the salespeople up on industries. But the first thing is you do have to have some industry expertise. All right. Second thing is, you've got to use your tools, LinkedIn, Rocket Research, websites. If it's a publicly traded company, get their quarterly and annual reports. Learn about this company. What are their goals? What are they trying to achieve? Who do you want to talk to? Which executive are you trying to target and build a conversation with? And then use your tools to reach out to them with thought leadership. Not, hey, you don't know me, but I want to sell you something. That's old school selling. That doesn't work. But rather, based on what I know about your industry and your company, I thought this information might be helpful to you. Share a white paper, share a trend, share some information, and start to build a relationship. And then you'll get that meeting. And oh, by the way, when you have a good reason to talk to an executive, it's very easy to have the gatekeeper actually be your helper. Remember, the gate does open. It opens for qualified people, okay? It's not a brick wall. And so if you have a good reason to talk to that executive, I don't even try and talk to the executive first. I call up the gatekeeper and say, I need your help. Here's why I want to speak to your boss. I've got a great reason. And when I explain it, they'll be like, okay, that sounds very reasonable. Let me check with my boss. And then I say a couple of important things. I say, I understand you want to check with your boss, but quite honestly, your boss won't be able to evaluate me until they talk to me. And that's going to be important for them. They're going to want to ask me questions, and we don't even know what those questions are. And secondly, they want to see how I answer those questions. So give me 2 minutes with your boss and let them decide whether I'm the right guy. And I'll tell you what, 90% of the time I am the right guy. And if I'm not, I won't bother you anymore. And they put me through. Okay. But you have to have a good reason. And that means you've got to know something about their industry and you've got to do some research. I also use networking. Let's say that I'm trying to get a meeting with you. I'll go to LinkedIn and see, who do we know that's common between the two of us? Who can give me an introduction? Or who can give me some preparation on, hey, when you're talking to KJ, these are some topics that are very important. Like, who can help me prepare for that? So it takes a little time, but let me tell you, when you get to an executive and you have a good relationship, business happens. You can solve their problems. They're going to buy from you. That's the power place to be. They are the ultimate decision makers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, the difficult position for a salesperson, Joe, is that they have to meet targets. Someone is breathing down their neck,
right?
And that the target is also, hanging over his neck and over his head.
Yes.
During that time, you talk about, the difference between selling and advising. If I keep on advising, act more like an industry leader, talk about trends, when do I make that sale? Will it happen, or should I bring it into the conversation? When will that happen? Because I got to go and tell my boss, where exactly have I reached in that discussion?
Gosh, I love your questions. You're so smart. First off, leadership has to buy into this approach. Okay, because if I'm a salesperson and I'm using this approach and my leadership, wants me to be making 70 cold calls a day, we got a problem. Right? So it has to be a strategy that's adopted in the company. That's the first thing. Now, you are correct that it has the appearance of a longer sales cycle, and sometimes it is longer, but it has a much higher close ratio, much higher. So I'll give you two scenarios. Scenario number one is a high velocity salesperson who's making 50 calls a day, 70 calls a day. A lot of activity, but very little closing. Okay, they don't close much. And when they close, it's low margin because they haven't built trust. They haven't built credibility. They don't have a strong value proposition. They don't understand the customer's goals and their desired outcomes. And so when they sell, they can't, get a high margin because they can't bring any value. Okay. So a lot of activity, low sales, low margin. Not great. My approach, strategic activity, longer sales cycle, but a much higher closing ratio at higher margin with repeat business and referrals. So philosophically, it makes sense. Now, how do we turn advising into selling? And we do. My approach has 4 stages. The first stage is engage. That's where you build trust and credibility. You're an advisor, okay? When you're an advisor to an executive, they start talking about their own business. The reason why is because executives are paid to change the business, not to manage it. That's somebody else. A lower person manages the business. They change the business. So they're going to start asking questions like, can I use this information in my business? What if my competition uses it? How can I benefit from it? Is it a risk? They start thinking about, what does this mean for my business? And at some point in the conversation, I recommend that we move to the explore stage. I don't actually call it the explore stage with the customer, but that's what I'm doing. In the explore stage, the customer gives me permission to learn about their business. We do a deep dive. And this is very important because now the customer and I are exploring, is there an opportunity for them to make a change in their business that I can help them with? Okay. And they've given me permission for this because I've already built a trust and credibility and they're already very curious on the topic we're talking about. So now when I do the explore, I can understand what their pain is, right? What are their gaps? Where are they? Where do they want to be? And I don't just understand it from a solution perspective, but I understand that from their goals. And from this discovery, not only can I identify an opportunity where I can help them, but I can build a return on investment value proposition, because they're going to tell me, these are my goals. And I'm going to ask them, if you don't achieve those goals, what's the cost to you? If you do achieve those goals, what's the benefit to you? They're going to give me the value proposition. That's the amazing thing. Then when I get to the proposal, I reflect back to them. During our discovery, you said that this was important, and that if we could achieve this goal, it would benefit your business in these ways. My solution will achieve the goal. So I do move into selling, but I don't start there. I start by being an advisor.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you also emphasize on long-term growth and customer relationships. Now,
Yep.
when I talk about business outcome, how is the way to put it in a nice manner so that it does not become a promise, it does not become a commitment, but it is also, you are telling that this outcome has to be done by you, but this is what I'm selling. This will help you reach that path. Even, investments have risks. Business outcome, can you
Yes.
really promise it? How do you then put things in the right perspective so that it achieves the goal of long-term relationship and, and long-term growth for you?
Yes. So you raise a very good point that, it's hard to guarantee something when you don't have total control over it. So if I sell something, I can't control what the customer does with it, and therefore it may not be successful or as successful as I hope. And that's valid. Executives understand this. But the big thing with an executive is they will dictate to their employees the activities that they need them to do. And so my conversation with the executive is, this is what I'm offering is in alignment with the work that you're doing. And you may need to make the following changes to be more successful. Ultimately, it's on them to achieve the results, but I can show them the roadmap to success. And the thing to remember about return on investments is they are all speculative. Okay, they're all based on assumptions. There's no such thing as a guaranteed return on investment, right? They're all based on assumptions, but the assumptions can be very valid. Okay, and executives are smart enough to know that there's no guarantees in life. But if they trust you and you understand their business and you can present them with a solution that's supporting their goals, they're going to be on board. And they still know that they have to do some work. They know it's not magic. They're mature. They're smart people. And as a salesperson, I don't have to overpromise. And that's important that I don't overpromise. But what I can say straight up is I can say, look, this solution has the full ability to work for you. I believe that your team can implement it, and my team will help with the implementation. And that's the truth.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Joe. So I want to understand, there's so much to learn from you. Understand. Let's learn a bit from your book, Leadership Selling, you talked about. So who is this book for? What have you covered in this book? What can readers expect from this book?
Sure. So the first thing is there's lots of very good sales books on the market today, many good sales books. And I didn't want to write another sales book because I felt like there's plenty of them. So my book takes a little bit of a different approach. First off, it's written for CEOs and business owners and sales leaders. Now, salespeople can benefit from reading the book, absolutely, but I've really targeted towards the leadership to say to them, here are some common challenges, because most sales leaders and most owners and executives aren't satisfied with the results they're getting today. And I explain why. Like I talk about traditional selling in some detail and say, here's why it doesn't work. Right? And then I share with them the philosophy, the methodology of leadership selling. And I talk about how to implement it, which is similar to our last conversation, which is I can't guarantee success, but I can help them implement it. I can say, hey, here's the best practices. If you do this, you will be much more successful. And so leadership selling, is kind of a guide for executives on how to transform their sales team. And it's step by step, and it's an easy read. It only takes about 3 hours. It provides a lot of information, and they can always come back to me if they have more questions.
Absolutely. So does this these tactics, do they work only in B2B or it also works in B2C? Because there is a whole trail of destruction seem to be left behind by the way customers have treated along the way.
Absolutely. This book is really written for B2B. Now, there is some crossover to B2C, but I want to be clear. It's business to business. It's based on having an outbound sales team that calls on companies. So it is B2B, yes. There's some crossover to B2C, but not as much, because B2C is more about brand and marketing and customer success and customer service. All of those are very important, and they cross over to B2B, but it is not B2B selling. It's very different.
Absolutely. There's much to learn from you about all these things, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to learn more from you, about you, from your book. What's the best way for them to connect with you, Joe?
The easiest way is to go to the book's website, which is leadership-selling.com. leadership-selling.com. And from there, you can contact me, you can schedule an appointment, you can read about the book. I have other websites with a lot of information, but let's just start there, because that's a great place for people to start, and then they can reach out to me.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you for your great questions and conversation.